Okay. So good evening to one and all present here. Today we have with us Sanchita ma'am. Ma'am has done her LLB from Aligarh Muslim University and LLM in International Human Rights Law from University of Essex. After completing her LLM, ma'am has worked with some of the most renowned legal luminaries, including senior advocate Salman Khurshid sir. She has been practicing at Supreme Court for more than 6.5 years now. At present, ma'am is an A.O.R at Supreme Court of India. It is indeed a pleasure to have you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you, ma'am. Today's session is an interactive one, so we'll be asking questions from ma'am from her journey, and I request participants also to put their question in the chat box to make the session more interactive. So, ma'am, if you permit, can we begin with the question?
Yes, please, Sakshi. Go ahead.
Yes, so the first question is, ma'am, do you think that a discrimination of student based on the law school is justified? Have you ever faced it?
Well, to answer your first part, let me first answer the second one, whether I have faced discrimination and whether it is justified. So, I guess discrimination of any kind is not justified, but first let's understand what this discrimination looks like, because I think many students from national universities or from top law schools may differ in their when it comes to whether there is discrimination or not. So let's first understand where it emerges from. So see, it's there's no black and white answer to it, because there are brands everywhere. So even when you go to buy a product, you'd obviously go for a brand that's known to have certain qualities, right? So when you have to invest your money into something, you obviously go for a good brand. Similarly, when say law firms or any lawyer wants to hire someone, obviously they're investing in the person. So they would want to invest in a good person, in a person whom they can trust. And how do they know that? So, of course, if a law school is known to be good, then they would consider the students of that law school to be good as well. And yet, they would want to see their CV and see how their grades are. So no matter which law school you're from, those things do matter at the end. But having said that, yes, brands do matter, just like in any other industry, brands do matter. But having said that, it's not like you cannot surpass it. So you're not like an inanimate object who cannot speak for themselves. You can definitely showcase your talent, and you do get opportunities to do that, right? So it could be that you're in your law school, there are not many initiatives taken, say, for co-curricular activities, and therefore you have limited scope to showcase it. But you can definitely try and introduce those. You can take initiatives as a group, and and you can bring in those in your law school as well. Like you can organize seminars, you can participate in moot court competitions, you participate in seminars. So it's just that you need to do it on your own initiative, because people around are not doing it. While in other law schools, everyone's doing it, and therefore, so that also creates a difference. So it's not just that you're facing a discrimination, but also the kind of efforts you're putting in. Even there's a difference there. So maybe you can start working on that and see where it takes you. Uh, if you ask me my experience, yes, I have faced it. But so when I went for an internship, firstly I applied everywhere, and I didn't receive any answer from any big law firms, right? So I received from a few law firms, and out of which I chose one of the best. And when I went there, the partner, so there was this student from DU sitting next to me, there was a student from MIT sitting next to me. He asked the names of our colleges, and then he just asked me this question, तुम्हारे यहाँ पढ़ाई होती है? Right. So it's very difficult to tell somebody who has a certain prejudice in mind. So I of course said हाँ होती है, but after that it was my work that showed my capability. Then the institution and what is the role the institution plays. can be put behind and you represent yourself. So that's possible. I hope I've answered you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the next question is, what is your opinion, is participating in co-curricular activities like moods, debates, seminars, webinars more beneficial for law students, or it is only the academic part that matters at the end?
See, legal education, it cannot be just restricted to academics. It cannot be restricted to just books. Because as practitioners, we all know that we need to know a lot more. We need to have experienced a lot more than just knowing what is written in the book. Therefore, the value of moot court competitions is definitely there for someone who wants to go into litigation. But otherwise, also as a student, it shows the kind of exposure you have. So the more number of these things you do, the more it gives you exposure, and it also develops your personality. It gives you confidence to use your education later in life. So I think it's very important. I think for every student, not just law student, I think it should be done by every student.
Yes, ma'am. So the next question is, do you suggest that one should go for LLM straight after LLB, or one should gain some experience first?
See, when it comes to India, we have a different culture, so we obviously go for LLM immediately after LLB. So that can be done. If you want to do an LLM in India, then of course there would be prejudice associated with you if you go later on, and there could be other criteria and parameters coming in your way. There could be age limit for applying to LLM courses. So you can do immediately after that. But if you're going abroad, then of course a few years of experience would be preferable to get scholarships. Otherwise, also you can go as a fresher if you don't have to worry about scholarships, or if you get a scholarship as a fresher,
Ma'am,
then it's worth it. Sorry.
what did you do? Did you do it immediately after LLB,
I did
or
immediately. So it has to each their own. So what
yeah?
happens when you go there immediately? Then of course the way you learn, what you learn is helps you later in your professional career. If you have spent some time in your professional career and then you go to, then you have the expertise that you can use while studying there. So it's both ways. But of course, experience, to have people with experience in the room in itself was a very enriching experience for me. So it helps, both helps, in fact.
And ma'am, the next question is related to this only, that how and when can one decide that the area of specialization that he and she wants to do in his or her LLM?
So it depends what you are interested in. Some people's, of course, interest is determined by what sounds more lucrative to them, where they would get more opportunities, or sometimes it can also be where they'll get more money. So that can be a factor. So you can choose a specialization according to that. But I would say just don't go for that, because it would, at the end, you would also need to have an interest in the subject in order to give it your full potential. Therefore, you also need to either develop interest. It's possible to develop interest in a subject by reading a lot about it, or otherwise you can just follow your where your interest is and uh, work on that. Even that's good enough. If you're interested in something that people generally say, oh, there's no scope, but you can build your career even in that area of specialization.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, the next question is that doing a LLM is necessity in today's competitive world. Does it help in getting more job opportunities?
Right. So it helps, but it may not be necessary. So it depends. If you get a good break immediately after your graduation, then of course you should go for because it's not easy always to get big breaks. So you should go for those. But if you want to further, increase your knowledge by studying, then you can go for LLM. Uh, Job opportunities, of course, over a long period of time, people do see whether you have. But sometimes, if you want to see if you have a good experience versus LLM, which one would be given more weight. There's no hard and fast rule about it. Depends. If you are working in a very good place, then of course that may weigh more than an LLM from anywhere, like a random university. But say if you have been to a good university for a specialization, say in corporate law, and then you're looking for a corporate firm, so they may, and there's another candidate who has a similar kind of experience and stuff. And of course, your LLM will weigh more. But but even till date, I think LLM from foreign universities, UK universities, depends where you're going and for what. They do have some weight. They do have some weight in law firms and also for clients. I think that really works when they see that in bracket that you have been to this place for LLM. Sometimes clients don't even know which place is the best. So either it's Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, or it's any other place. It's the same for them. So foreign degree always helps to that extent. Yes, but it's not really a necessity per se, but it helps. Yes.
Okay. So now I request Tushar to continue with the questions.
Thank you so much, Sakshi.
Okay, there's some questions in the chat. Sachin has asked, "Are you also specially abled, ma'am?" Okay, firstly, I don't use the word specially abled. I don't think anybody uses, though anybody with a disability would like to use it. The appropriate term that's legally acceptable would be persons with disabilities. And I do have a disability, but yeah, so it's a chronic neurological disorder. It's called dystonia. I hope that answers your question. If you want to ask any further, I'll be happy to answer. The other question is, which is the right time to do internship? Whenever you have breaks, vacations, please go for internships. I think it's good to invest 1 month in one internship in order to learn the most from
Hello,
that place.
ma'am. 1 minute. It's going very fast, ma'am.
Very fast. Oh, I realize that. I'm so
Ah,
sorry. I'm so sorry, Deepika. Yes, please.
okay, ma'am.
I'll go through. When did you decide you wanted to pursue law? Also, did you have any role models in the legal theory or elsewhere? When did I decide? Well, it was in when I was in +2 and I was studying political science. That's when we also had Indian polity. We had constitution. That's when I realized that I really enjoyed studying law, and therefore I chose to study law. So I just had in mind I want to study law. I don't know what I want to do after studying it, but right now it's something that really fascinates me and I'll study. How do we choose the university for LLM? What is better, general LLM or specialization? How do you choose is, I mean, I can do one entire session on how do you choose, but depends what you want. So whether you want to do a general LLM or specialization, if you want to, so if it's say it's Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, there are certain universities that only provide general LLM, but you can choose certain modules there, and your degree would say that you have specialized in so and so papers if you choose a certain number of modules of that subject. So if you get in those universities, of course, a general LLM would be still worth it. Depends if you have a certain subject that you're so interested in that you would want to invest 1 year or 2 years just studying that. Say you want to really study corporate law, then of course you go for specialization. But yes, I think generally people do want to do a specialization because they want to gain expertise by study of a certain subject, and therefore they do LLM. But if you get a general LLM in any of these universities, then it's still worth it. How do you choose? Well, again, go for brands. Go for brands. If you get in any of these branded any branded universities, please go for it, because that's what decides everything. So when you appear for CLAT, if you get a higher rank, you're getting whichever law school you get, then you go for that law school, because later on no one is going to ask you your rank, that you had certain consideration in mind, you wanted to stay closer to home, therefore you went to another law school. All that doesn't really carry much later. Therefore, just go for the best one you get an opportunity in. Don't choose beforehand. First apply and then choose which one has a better. If you are going for, say, in the UK, if you're going for a PhD, if you're going for an LLM, and you want a career in academics, then of course you look at the RAE ranking. They have a research assessment ranking. So whichever university is higher up in the research, then you go there, you get to learn more. Otherwise, more or less, UK universities are like DU, like you go to any university and it's good, it's said to be good enough for general courses. Similarly, in UK, it's definitely better than India, but then again, you can see which university is known for which courses, and if you have interest in those courses, you can definitely apply. You can apply for Commonwealth scholarship and also apply for Commonwealth shared scholarship. So sometimes the scholarship would decide where you want to go and what you want to do. Like shared scholarships are meant only for certain subjects in certain universities. So if you get those, of course you're going for it because it's like a full scholarship. So that's also a factor that you need to keep in mind when you're deciding. Next question is, sorry, there are too many questions. What can make us a
Ma'am, would you
good
read the question or should we read it out for you if
That's
it is
okay.
getting?
What can make us a good lawyer? I mean, which qualities? You see, you need to have of course, analytical quality. You need to be able to analyze stuff. You also need to be able to question stuff. You need confidence. You need oratory skills. So all of these you can develop, and then there's nothing to beat knowledge. So if you're well versed with the law, even if you are not as good as in one of these, you can still do well with just good knowledge. Next is, which city is best for preparation? Civil judge. You want to prepare for judiciary examination. Of course, in COVID times, this question doesn't apply. I mean, it's all happening virtually. You have a lot of online coaching classes as well, online courses as well. But otherwise, mostly depends where I mean, Delhi is something where you get to prepare for all sorts of examinations. Otherwise, if you are in UP, then of course they focus more on UP judicial services. So it depends which judiciary examination you want to focus on. I think it depends also on that, because if you have a domicile at a certain place, oh, it's Puja Jain. I don't know if you're from UP, then you have a reservation there. So all that matters. If otherwise people generally come to Delhi and prepare here because they prepare you for a judicial examination all over India. Ma'am, according to your experience, what among judiciary and a corporate lawyer is more growth oriented and promising? Uh, Difficult question. Depends what you're interested in. Usually, of course, it may take a while for you to get promotions and stuff. Depends. You can always go for higher judiciary uh, while being in practice. Corporate lawyer, of course, you can make a lot of money. Depends what you're interested in. Really, I don't think what matters to you. Growth. If you're looking for growth in terms of personal growth, if you really like, if you would want to sit on the other side and decide cases, then of course will appear more promising to you. Even if somebody says, oh, as a corporate lawyer, you're going to make money. So it depends what you're interested in. Don't compromise on what you think is important for you. I think that's very important, that you don't compromise with that. Just by listening to others, that people say, oh, there's so much scope there. Just ask them what that scope means. And if somebody says, "Oh, you're a woman, and therefore judiciary is more is better for you," like I had been listening to it for the entire 5 years, and I was like, "Better than what? Do you want to say better than litigation?" Then I would beg to differ. So if someone is saying that to you, then of course, just keep it aside and do what you want to do. Good evening, ma'am. What is your timetable for your LLM studies? I'm not sure if I get your question. Uh, do you mean how many years, or just if you can clarify, Arastu? Uh, my question is that we go for judiciary along with LLM. You want to prepare for judiciary along with LLM? That's a very smart move to do because you take more time to prepare. You also get some additional points that help you in promotion and stuff. So I think that's something we definitely do. Many of my friends while doing LLM crack judiciary. So you also get to do LLM and you also get to uh, prepare more for judiciary. Sometimes, just sitting at home and preparing for years may be very cumbersome. So if you have something going on that's keeping your life in routine, that may even be better. Sometimes it works for me. I know it is out of the webinar point of view, but ma'am, how do you go for LLM in maritime law? I mean, which college will be the best for maritime studies? I am not very sure, but you have South Asian University in India. I think that's good. When you are looking at something that has an international law background in it, then I think that's a good university that has some professors who are exposed to maritime law. Other than that, if you're looking abroad, then of course I am not sure about the university, but you can do your research and see. Is it necessary to do LLM when you want to go in judiciary? It's not necessary, but when you are applying for promotion, you get an additional point. So once you've done judiciary, of course, there's no scope of doing an LLM after that. So in case you can manage both, like you can prepare for judiciary while doing LLM, then I think it helps in getting promotion later on. It may not help. It may or may not help during the interview of for the judiciary. I don't think it helps much, but for promotions later on, it does. Ma'am, what is your advice for someone who wants to pursue a career in teaching law? Well, I have a lot of advices, but I would recommend you to really focus on your foundation, on your basic. That should be very, very clear to you because that's really the basic. I think that's something that's important for everyone, that you really need to know your stuff, right? After that, I think it's important to develop research skills. It's important to read a lot of academic writings, journals, write, contribute in peer-reviewed journals, and also you can develop an interdisciplinary approach. I think that's very important as an academic because you want to stand out from other academics. You want to do something different. You want to experiment with what you are teaching. Then an interdisciplinary approach will really help if you inculcate it while being a student. One more question. Can you please let us know the exact time frame for internship period, and should we join a law firm, or exact time frame for internship period? So see, you can apply. Bar Council has a rule that says that only when you do not have classes you can do an internship. Sometimes we get no objection from universities, and students do it after their classes are over. So it depends where you are, which college, how much they allow you. But during vacations, you should definitely do internships. Should we join a law firm or should we go for internship with an individual lawyer? I think you should do both and see what works for you, what you would like to do in future. You should get a taste of everything. That's important. I want to appear for MPSC. What will be helpful for me, UPSC or MPSC? I think you can prepare for both of them simultaneously and see which one you crack. I think that will be important. I don't think you should choose and apply for one and think that, oh, UPSC is not meant for me. I don't think it's like that. You should go for the maximum and then see where you land. How do we apply for internship? Does advocating on behalf of a deaf family come in the arena of internship? I will be representing a deaf, raped, and murdered girls family for advocacy because they're disabled, financially weak. Sorry, this is Saudamini's message, so I'm just reading it out.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Am I going too
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are in the.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm just too excited to interact with. Okay, will it count as internship? So Damini, it won't, because you really need to be associated with an advocate who will give you a
Sorry, sorry,
certificate.
sorry. Once again, ma'am. Please, once again.
Sure.
What's her question?
Her question is typed already, Deepika. So she has
Actually.
asked. She has asked if advocating on behalf of a deaf family would come within the definition of internship. So I'm
Okay.
telling her that you need to be associated with an advocate or a legal firm during your internship, and then they will give you a certificate that will be a proof of your internship. The advocacy you do, of course, will count. You can write it in your CV, you can talk about it. That's an important aspect of your learning. But when we say internships, we generally mean a formal kind of internship, right? To become a corporate lawyer, which would be better, BLLB versus BCom LLB plus CS? So the thing is, the uh, how do I put it? So I think these days people do have a CS. Big law firms have CS and lawyers, so they don't necessarily want you to do CS as well. The good law firms still, or the ones that cannot hire a CS as well, they would prefer somebody who has a CS degree too. But other than that, these days I found that it really doesn't count much if you have a CS. But of course, if someone doesn't have it and you have it, then you get preference, that's for sure. Ma'am, while applying for UK universities, what are the things we should take care of? What I mean is, what are the things that might make me stand out in a crowd? So UK universities, they require you to prepare a personal statement. You need your CV. You need references. So personal statement is like your personal journey where you show them you have leadership quality, and that your experience so far will how that will contribute in your studies, and how you would benefit from studying in that university in future, how it's related to what you want to do in life. So it's very personal. Make it personal. And so it doesn't really matter. So when you're writing a personal statement, just don't think, oh, there must be people who would have done so many things, etc. Even if, so to stand out, just a moment, just give me one. I'm so sorry. So to stand out, you need to really think what all you have done right from your childhood, and see how you can weave it in the form of a story and present it. The better you're able to present, the more chances you have. Your grades matter. It has to be of a certain level in order to get into a good university. And then your references, of course. Your I mean, in my case, I got an unconditional offer even before my references released. So all of these have weight, but one thing can surpass the other. So next question is, I'll be completing my law by mid of October 2020. So can you please give me an idea, like, for how long should I go for internship period? uh So if you're completing this year, I think you should look for a job rather than an internship. But of course, it's difficult to get a job these days. But you should, I think, keep looking for a job rather than internship. Many people think they would get into internship and then get a job. But I think when you're completing it this year, you are very clear that you need a job, right? Ma'am, in your experience of working in the Supreme Court, have you ever faced discrimination because of being a woman? I'm so glad that Piyush is asking me this question. If yes, how did you deal with it? Or can we safely say that the prejudice is no longer there in the top court? Well, I would really like to hear why you're asking this, Piyush, because see, it's there, and it's something that's subtle. It's there even in the West today. So it depends on what form it shows. It shows in different forms in different courts. It shows in different form in Supreme Court, but it's there. And again, discrimination may show up as prejudice. So it may not be that somebody is being mistreated because she's a woman, but even if people are patronizing towards you, people are, I mean, they may think they're being just nice to you, but even that would constitute discrimination in a manner because a woman would like to be treated equally. They wouldn't want to be treated in a patronizing manner. Uh, I'll tell you more about it later. Let's take some more questions. Ma'am, being a non-NLU student with non-law background, sorry, with non-law background, how can I get an internship opportunity in a top law firm? Sorry, you'll have to explain non-law background. What have you studied? What's your background like, and why would you want a job in a law firm if you have not done law? You really need to explain that. Is it okay to use your high school teacher as a reference if you have been in a boarding school? Shraddha, I think you should take a reference from a professor who has taught you recently. And if you have already started working, then of course, one academic referee does, and you can works, and you can take professional references as well. But otherwise, you should take academic references from the professors who have taught you recently in your college. If you're applying for any specialization, then you can apply. You can go to the professor who has taught you that subject. So don't go to high school teachers for reference. Non-legal family background. Now I get it. So you want an internship opportunity in property. Yeah. And you're from a non-NLU student. So just there these days there are so many online kind of databases available where they kind of tell you how to work on your CV and your cover letter. I think that's how you show that you have the ability, and you also work on your extracurricular activities, your grades, everything, so that it shows up on your CV that you are somebody who is promising and who is bright enough, who deserves an opportunity for internship. I don't think there's any shortcut way, and I don't think just because you're not from a national or university, you won't get an opportunity. But for that, you need to keep trying. You need to apply everywhere, and then of course maybe you won't get into a top one in one go, but you should keep expanding your work, and so that it keeps reflecting on your CV. Right. Uh, Sorry. Now you can continue with the question. Sorry, I took.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, you studied law in India as well as abroad. So, ma'am, what were the major differences that you faced between the two, like in teaching methodologies and internships and co-curricular activities and all of that?
Right. So, see, the way they teach they don't teach actually. What we used to have is seminar classes where everyone used to sit in a kind of round table and we would have discussions. And because we went to do an LLM and there were students from diverse backgrounds with experience. In fact, we learned more from each other than from the teacher. Sometimes we were told that during our orientation session. Sometimes we were doing a case and somebody would have appeared in that case in ICJ and they would be like, oh, we were heading so and so when this case happened, etc. We got first hand account from people who were working in Syria, or so we learned more about humanitarian law, how it looks like in practice and how it is in books. So it became much more alive for us. It was much more interesting. That's one. Second is the way you are treated. It was I think it you're treated as somebody who has some value to add to the classroom at all times. So there was nobody whose uniqueness was not recognized in the classroom. We all knew who is good at what. The professor knew. So that really helps in development of your personality in growing, not just professionally but personally as well. So to that extent, I found it.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, from your personal experience, do you think that if a person does LLM from a top national law university in India, and if the other person does a LLM from a foreign university, which one will have a more advantage?
Advantage again depends what why you want that advantage, in what sense you look, what is advantageous for you. If you are looking at job prospects, even then of course, doing it from a good university abroad doesn't mean any random university anywhere, but from a good university would mean much more than doing it from India. But uh, but for personal growth, I don't think India is still a match, because I had looked at the curriculum and I had applied for CLAT even in India, and I had looked at the curriculum, and I thought there won't be that much to offer than what I had already studied. During my graduation days, I used to study a lot of reference books. So ultimately, I wanted something more than just classroom teaching at that time, because maybe whatever they're going to teach, I've already read them from the reference books, or even if it's by if it my knowledge is increased by an inch or a few inches, I would want really more than that. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Right. Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, at what stage exactly when did you decide that you wanted to become an AOR? And do you think that there is something called a right time when you want to pursue AOR?
So, at what time I decided, since I started working with an AOR right at the beginning, that was the first break I got. Therefore, that seemed to, and then I started working with the senior advocate. So, that seemed to be a natural path for me. I cannot recall exactly when I thought of doing it, but since Supreme Court was my play field, I really thought that it's just a thing I have to do to be able to file cases. So if you want to start a practice in Supreme Court, then of course you should do it the moment you're eligible for it. There's no point in postponing it for later. It's always good to have a added qualification, and also because there's a huge gap later. You haven't really studied stuff, like it requires you to remember stuff and write an examination. You haven't done it for years. So if you do it after say 10 years of leaving college and stuff, it can be difficult. So it's better to write it the moment you're eligible, and you
Yes.
also can make more take more attempts and stuff if you cannot. Though I mean it's possible to clear it in one go. So the sooner you give, the better it is. Yeah.
Ma'am, how many attempts are permitted?
There's no limit, but then there are few. I mean, you need to I haven't you need to check the rules. So there's no limit to attempts, but you can be disqualified from attempting again or something of that sort. Is there? You need to check for that. But there are people who keep attempting. I cleared it in first attempt, and many people clear it in first attempt. It's not
Yes,
that
ma'am.
difficult. Yeah.
So, ma'am, throughout your journey from the law school to become an AOR, what were the major hurdles that you faced because of being a woman, and how did you overcome them?
Because of being a woman. Wow. So, first hurdle was when I was in AMU, and see, women were not much visible in the main campus, because most of the women undergraduate students studied in women's college that was a separate campus. So we only the undergraduate students who were in professional courses, say law, medicine, etc. They were they could be seen, and those women who were doing postgraduate courses. So therefore, there was a very, the representation of women was, even though there were many women studying in the campus, but because of the segregation, the visibility was very less. And I thought it was because of that that there were uh, many women faced issues with their confidence, etc. And therefore, those who were confident, like kind of stood out, and they were it really intimidated some people, not just students but teachers as well sometimes. So, but there were very few of them who created problems in women's lives, but they were enough. But I think it was because of those experiences that it brought out the best out of me. And I really owe a lot to that place. I'm really not criticizing, maligning in the image of that place, because I have worked there. I've worked with the students there. If it would not have been for that place, I would not have been the person I am today. So it was a very enriching experience to work with women students there and to create something new out of it, to understand why what was happening, and to and the place is completely changed now. I'll tell you a personal experience. An ex dean came and told me, Sanchita, you had put the foundation for the change that has come today in the way the women speak, etc. So I think that was a very big compliment for me, something that I always remember whenever I am stuck, or I'm at crossroads, or my confidence is shaken. I just think of that phase of my life where I did something extraordinary just by by rising above my personal issues that I was facing at that time. It seems very personal to you. It feels like nobody else can understand what you're dealing with, and you're so trapped in those experiences that you cannot look beyond. But when you're able to break that and see that other people are also going through the same, what can you do to contribute? Right? Like now I'm thinking of having an all women's office where the law clerk will also be a woman. You don't see law clerks, women law
And
clerks.
that would be a first of a kind in India, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm training a woman to be a law clerk. It's yet to be seen if her grit will take her and will allow her to, face men every day in the counter and say, no, I need to get this done. We'll see.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, in the end, we would just like to ask you what are the major suggestions and advice that you would like to give to the students?
uh, you really need to specify. Okay, so it's just my last words, if you can say then. So I think, as I said before, there's no substitute. So even if you are from a national, if you are not from a national university, please do not worry. Please do not let it block your your confidence or your ability to put in the maximum efforts or to develop yourself to the fullest. You may not be getting support from your university. You may be frustrated because of it. You may think other people are doing much more because of reasons that have got nothing to do with you really. But even then, it's possible to really brush up your basics. It's possible to stand out of the crowd by just doing that. Trust me, I was doing an internship with Mr. Parag Tripathi. He was the additional solicitor general at that time. And arbitration was going on. This was my second last day of internship. He was appearing for Gale. There was this Gale's legal officer sitting, very senior briefing counsel sitting, Mr. Parag Tripathi, his junior, three arbitrators, right? Among the three arbitrators, there was this retired Delhi High Court judge. Other two arbitrators were very distinguished as well. Now, so they got stuck somewhere, right? And now Mr. Tripathi was reading out a judgment, and the judges were like, "Why wouldn't this apply to your case?" He was reading a English judgment, right? And he so there was no answer to it. The answer we were arguing something that had to do with Contract Act. And I remembered a provision from Partnership Act that would have been relevant just to answer that question. It had got nothing to do with our case, but judges were continuously asking why wouldn't this apply to your case. So pointed it out. The briefing counsel said this to Mr. Tripathi. He read it out, the provision I had pulled out in my mobile, and he read it out. And trust me, when he said that it was my learned intern who said this, everyone in the room was staring at me. Yeah, and it was just because I had done my job well. I had read when I had to read something. That's it. I was not doing anything at that time. So I sometimes think if I would have been in a national law university, I may have wasted so much of my time. But it was just because I was so anxious that other like national law university students must be getting so much exposure. So I need to utilize my time that I was focusing more on my studies. So, and that always helps. Knowledge, there's no substitute for knowledge. There's no substitute for the skills you develop while gaining that knowledge.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, before we end, I think there is one last question about the main challenges that you faced while becoming an AOR.
While becoming an AOR, you need to be specific, like while practicing in Supreme Court or while preparing for the examination.
Ma'am, while preparing.
Preparing, the main obstacle was since I had not given written an examination for such a long time. Suddenly, when you have to remember stuff to recall it and write it, so everything was like you need to practice writing as well because either your handwriting has to be good at the end of the 3 years. Something you didn't have to worry when you were writing examination as a student. Suddenly, all of this has to be done when you are writing your A.O.R exam. You have to think about. So it's not just about reading; it's also about remembering stuff and recalling it and writing it on a piece of paper. So I think not being used to it was the only hurdle I was facing. Other than that, we already knew the practice and procedure in Supreme Court. So most of the papers drafting again we knew. So most of the papers were of that nature that it really you don't need to mug up stuff. Uh, but you need to be on top of your things beforehand. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, have you ever faced discrimination in the UK because you are an Indian?
Not in the university, not in the campus, because there are students from all over the world in those universities. So that's the advantage with the UK. It's really global. Every university there will give you a global experience. But in say like you have Tesco there, you have those kind of. It was very subtle. You could sense it that somebody is not doing something for you because they don't like you for some reason. But other than that, there was no such discrimination as such. Once I went to a church and I met this. It was a very interesting conversation that this chap was telling me. He was over 90 years old, and he was telling me after we have left you all, you guys have been fighting with each other. I was like, okay, I'd rather not say anything to you. Yeah, so those were the only experiences I had.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think there is one more question that has just now come.
It's like these days, parents are always worried for their daughters when it comes to practice law in courts. Do you have something to say? You need not be worried at all. I think it's been it's been so different from what it was from the previous generation. Uh, though I was talking about discrimination and stuff, but trust me, it's way better now. It's as good as working in any other office. So if you're willing to let your daughter, well, I mean, I'm using the word letting your daughter, but if your daughter is working anywhere else, then she will be able to work in a court. She'll be able to practice as well. So please don't stop her from doing anything she wants to do just because she's a woman. Please, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So if there are no more, ma'am, just one more question popped up. If you permit, then only we go forward now.
Yeah. Is it okay to prepare for UPSC exams while doing LLM? Of course, it's okay. You need to juggle, and I think it's advisable that you keep, as I said earlier, with judiciary as well. You it sometimes helps you keep your life in routine and prepared, but sometimes you would want to just focus on UPSC exams. Depends on what you want to do, but it will be an added advantage again for your promotions and stuff if you have a postgraduate. Thank you,
Yes, ma'am.
Shraddha.
Yes. So, ma'am, can we start with the vote of thanks now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Just. So, on behalf of Being Logical, I would like to thank Sanchita ma'am for taking out time from her busy schedule. Ma'am, indeed, you are an inspiration for all of us, and the amount of knowledge that you shared today is really commendable. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. We would
Thank
also
you
like
so
to
much.
thank.
Sorry, I'm
Thank
so
you, ma'am.
sorry. I thought you were done. Yeah, please.
No, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. We would also like to thank Deepika ma'am for her presence and enabling us to make this session and webinar more inclusive. In the end, we would like to thank all the participants who have joined in, and I hope the session had really helped you. We look forward to host you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.